Welcome to a noob's guide to Miao Ying. This is Miao Ying, the Storm Dragon, a powerful mage and dragon so majestic the mere sight of Miao Ying has inspired 1,000 fan arts and threatened to kill half the world's scalies from dehydration. In this video, we'll showcase Miao Ying's lore, how that translates to gameplay in Total War Warhammer 3, and then cover her intended playstyle. Drawing on their usual bottomless well of creativity, Games Workshop thought, what would Rule 63 Raiden look like? And then watched Mulan and copied its homework to fill in the extra bits. There's a girl, a wall, a horde of ravaging barbarians, some dragons for flavor, and enough explosives to warrant a permanent spot on the ATF watch list. Yet Miao Ying soars above this to become the ultimate homeland defense fantasy. Her campaign leans heavily into Warhammer 3's siege rework, so if you watched Game of Thrones and then had notes after it, you've found your next legendary lady. Dragon lady. As a human, she can sling healing spells and support her army as they rain hot lead, or you can show her true form and forcibly enroll people into the Cathayan space program. Just don't be surprised when the odd one says, "Thank you ma'am, and can I have another?" as they enter orbit. Eons ago, dragons were the dominant species on their planet, and as Valkar on the Total War forums explains it, they would sit there and all just hang out and chill. Literally, because the world was further from the sun and super cold. Then cosmic gateways opened up in the sky, and the old ones moved into the Dragon's Corner cul-de-sac. These new space lizards moved their rental planet closer to the sun and started a block party without asking first, inviting all the world's primitive species over and encouraging them to yell at each other until 2 a.m. The dragons found themselves trapped in a summer heat wave with noisy neighbors and suspicious dealings that brought the cops around at least once a week. Then, chaos broke in, crashed the party, smashed the stargates, and evicted the old ones from their own trap, setting themselves up as nihilist squatters in what was once a perfectly nice, albeit slightly chilly neighborhood. So the immortal dragons dug themselves nice cool fallout shelters and decided to sleep it off until everyone above ground had killed themselves and ushered in a new ice age from their own hubris. Unfortunately, 2 of the eastern dragons had kids on the way, so they stayed awake to try and tough it out, moving as far into the Cathayan suburbs as they could manage, where they built a gated community with an ironclad HOA. Miao they rule Grand Cathay is immortal god emperors. Fantasy not China has been in the margins of Warhammer for a while now, but we're about as fleshed out as a biology lab skeleton. With their impending release in the Old World Warhammer Fantasy Revival, Games Workshop has decided Miao was a good time to update their lore. The Dragon Emperor is Miao, a literal dragon, ruling the local human population as a walking god. To keep from blowing the peasants' tiny minds, the dragons do take on human form to walk amongst their people, which means Games Workshop can Miao charge you for 2 models at the same time.
I'm sorry, are you saying meow?
Do I look like a cat to you, boy?
The Emperor has also been changed to become an absent father figure that takes no direct part in governing his own empire, instead delegating any real work to his 5 dragon children. There were 9 of them originally, but it's a we don't talk about Bruno situation. One time their dragon parents left them alone to go on vacation for 100 years, and the dragonlings did what Chinese rulers do best and fought a bloody civil war that killed millions of peasants. They remember it as a slow Tuesday. Miao Ying is the eldest and most powerful of these children. Like her father, though, she spends most of her time in human form. It limits unwanted attention when traveling abroad, it's easier to fit through doorways, and, opposable thumbs. There's no official lore yet on how far abroad Miao Ying has ventured, but given her Cathayan heritage, you can bet she took plenty of selfies along the way if she did. Something in her travels, though, must have spooked her, an encounter with a nameless, unscrupulous, restless evil that just couldn't be reasoned with. Because Miao Ying returned home to take up the post of commander of the Great Bastion, personally ensuring that whatever was on the other side of that wall would never cross it. As ruler of the northern provinces, Miao Ying diverts nearly all of its resources to supply the Great Bastion. In exchange, Nangao, the City of Smoke, is given more leniency in its rule. This dependency on humans has led a few of its lords to challenge their matriarch's rule, but she quickly reminds them who exactly wears the dragon pants in their relationship. To prevent this sort of free-minded thought from spreading to other cities, most of Grand Cathay's magistrates and sorcerers are Shugengon, dragon-blooded. making them distant half-relatives and the diluted descendants of her brothers. This debasement of their honor is one reason she stands apart from her siblings at family gatherings. Yet her story in Warhammer 3's Realm of Chaos campaign has her working alongside her family to find a long-lost dragon sister. That dichotomy in Miao Ying's personality is kinda hard to come to terms with. Part of the research process for a Noob's Guide is to deconstruct all of the tropes and influences that make up these characters. For Miao Ying, Western media archetypes don't fit. She may be cold and aloof, but she's not an ice queen. She's a woman in charge, but she's hardly an alpha bee. Her background and inspiration is really closer to anime. Miao Ying is smarter, stronger, faster, more talented, and more refined than her siblings, and just to add insult to injury, way hotter too. Her only problem is moving her face out of an expression of bored, dignified disdain. Really, she's Shishomaru. That's why Miao Ying gladly accepts the thankless task of protecting their entire civilization for all eternity, a job with zero perks, crippling loneliness, and the soul-crushing burden of knowing that any slip-up will doom anyone and everyone she's ever met to endless torment. Miao Ying is the best choice for the job, and she knows it. So what if her siblings think she's daddy's favorite and the peasants dislike her? They're worms in comparison, and the only reason they can wriggle and make jokes is because she keeps the darkness out of their dirty little lives.
You don't want the truth because deep down in places you don't talk about at parties, you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall.
You've never experienced true power until you're single-handedly healing an entire army and then whip out your D just to fly in and mushroom stamp an enemy lord. With both of Miao's campaigns starting at the Great Bastion, your biggest challenge will be keeping that monster in her pants. Chaos forces constantly amass outside her walls, and it will be up to you to thin their ranks or brace for a major invasion force when its meter tops out. The wall is beaten and broken after years of defense, and your first order of business should be repairs and strengthening its garrisons, as it will free Miao Ying up from defense to show Chaos that her boots were made for walking. But until that happens, she can expect constant visits from your local Chaos tribe that's hung like horses. Wait, hung with horses? No, hung on the horses? Why doesn't that sound any better? Miao stymies any of Chaos's advances into Grand Cathay, though, with a faction ability that removes any Chaos corruption in her area. And if they do reach the walls, they'll discover her traits and skills that increase the range and effectiveness of all ranged units, while also providing more ammunition. Because the last thing you want when you're 40 feet up a wall with a tide of blue nutjobs running at you is for the hammer to fall on an empty chamber. So your best bet when playing her is always to take up a strong defensive position and then dig in deeper than an Alabama tick. Throw in some hot air balloons of death, a giant mortar, and a couple dozen rocket batteries, and you have the full combined arms assault that the dwarfs and Empire can only wet dream about. But fielding the world's largest and most advanced military doesn't come cheap. To supplement your income, you can send out caravans along the Ivory Road for additional income. But frankly, that's more her brother's thing. Miao is more concerned about winter fatigues arriving before the frost than the price of tea in China. Keeping the local plebs happy takes a bit of tricky planning, though, as you have to consider the yin and yang of each decision you must make, ideally keeping all of society in balance for the greatest harmony. Doing so will gain you huge boons, while ignoring it will bring crippling penalties. And unlike other legendary lords, Miao Ying doesn't have quests for unique weapons or armor. Her hide is already dragon scale, and her hands are registered weapons. I mean, why would she need some magical sword dipped in a lady's bathwater when she can wield spells from the lore of life and yin already? This more defensive mindset and build means she may not slap as hard as her other siblings, but when you can open up a fire hose of lead at anyone coming at you, there isn't much need to participate, other than, keeping a box of band-aids for anyone who happens to get slide bite. The only real threat Miao Ying faces is drowning in the sheer amount of fan art she's inspired. Cold and aloof? Hardly. It's just that every swinging Tom, Dick, and Harry can't stop thinking of her as a walking waifu pillow ready to be forever uncleaned. A powerful woman with shoulders like a linebacker, accentuated with 80 shoulder pads and a power suit shows up, and the first thing people ask is for the giant mommy to step on them. Games Workshop and the Creative Assembly might have gone too hard on Miao Ying being cold and aloof, because now everybody wants to lick the electric dragonberry popsicle. It's a good thing they also made a character that can take care of herself. So praise the Dragon Lord Emperor and pass the ammunition, because Miao Ying the Storm Dragon is here to remind the world that not every wall is the Maginot Line, and with enough rockets, bullets, and Dragon Balls, you can paint a permanent border on the map, because this has been a Noob's Guide to Miao Ying. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel or join our Patreon and help vote on which one comes next. But regardless, thanks for watching.